So on the spur of the moment, me and my best friend, we decided to take apart one of my mini bikes and do a little bit of a restoration on it. Really, the only reason I had it taken apart was because the chain kept falling off. So it was a simple sprocket fix, but then we figured while we were at it, I might as well paint the wheel, and then painting the wheel turned into painting the other wheel, and now the bike is completely apart. So there's not much to these bikes. All we have left is really to take off the motor, and then we can wash, sand, and prime the frame. These are all the other parts. There's really not much to it. Hand grips, little fender. Over here we already have a couple of the parts going. We've got the two-piece hubs with a glossy black. Same thing with the sprocket and spindle. And then a couple of the random wheel spacers down here. But I think we decided on doing the frame a vintage Mopar, like plum purple kind of color. And the wheels are black like you just saw, and we're still trying to decide on the frame. But hopefully we can knock this out pretty soon before I go back to school. Just a fun little project over my break. We got the bike all blown apart, sand the frame so we can hit it with primer. Motor's laying there waiting for us to work on it. These parts are still hanging and drying if you can see them. And right over here I got the clutch and the clutch belt. I'm just going to hit them with some high temperature black because they were starting to rust a little bit, so just make them look better. Bunch of small stuff happening now. Lots of tedious work. Frame is almost completely sanded. Just a little bit left to do. The motor is pretty much taken apart. These parts are still drying. That's the muffler that I hit with some of this engine enamel. And I think I've actually got a cool idea for what we're going to do for the motor. Since we're going to try and base this car off of a vintage muscle car, I think I'm going to spray it with the black and then wipe off the top of these fins so you get the same look as like a valve cover on a muscle car where it's painted black, but then the top of the fins you can see the aluminum showing. So I'm going to give that a try. We got these out here drying because I hit them with some engine degreaser. And then we got to sand them and paint them and do all that. Same thing with the valve cover, or not the valve cover, this is the housing, shroud, whatever you want to call it. I got that sitting there waiting to be sanded. But yeah, basically at this point, there's just a lot of sanding going on, and we're painting all the pieces a little bit at a time until they're all done, and we'll start assembling again. Alright, so now we got a pretty much bare frame. Now we've got two bent pieces here. The foot brake and the peg on this side are slightly bent from years of abuse and probably falling over. So I've got a butane torch, and I'm gonna heat up the metal till it's almost red hot, or red hot for that matter, and then put the pipe on it and just try and bend it back. Simple as that. Give it a try. So now I'm trying to engineer a braking system for this bike, because when I got it, the braking system was completely gone. There's nothing left. This bike originally came with a scrub brake, which is where you'll push on this foot pedal here, and through linkages it'll move a plate that literally just rubs on the tire to make the bike stop, which is why it's called a scrub brake. So because it's so simple, I'm just gonna remake one of those because all the brackets are here for it already. So I've got this piece, which I didn't bend this up myself. I actually got this off an old snowblower. I just had it lying around, but it works almost perfectly. It'll contour to the frame and then come up, and I'll have a little bracket off here for it to attach to. But you can see you'll push on the pedal, and then that rod will transfer it to this 8-inch bolt that's going through, and then I've got some steel plate right here, and I'll cut this to about 5 inches. And when that's cut and it's welded to the bolt, you'll push on the brake and it'll move and rub against the tire and the bike will stop. And I've got the motor and chain on just to prove or to show for mock-up that none of these components are gonna get in the way of each other. I know the chain's just lying here, but when it's across, you know, there's not gonna be any interference problems. All these things will work together nicely. So let me cut up this steel plate, and unfortunately I don't have a welder, so I think I'm gonna run around to maybe a local shop and see if they'll be nice enough just to run a bead here and then weld on the bracket I'm gonna make for right here, and maybe I'll throw them a couple bucks if they want. Very fast that I do not have the provisions to cut 3/16 steel. And the steel plate that this one is going to be the scrub brake pad, I guess you could call it. It's going to rub on the tire. And this is my first attempt at building the bracket that's going to attach. Well, I'm going to get up and show you. At the bracket that's going to attach right here so that the brake linkage can hook and make this turn. And well, I made it too small, so now I got to go back and cut another one. And it takes a long time to cut through this with my Chinese cutoff wheel, and we only have a 6-gallon air compressor, so the thing has to recharge all the time. And I'll get maybe 30 seconds of like good cutting out of this thing before the tank's just completely dead. But gotta use the tools that you have.